In Veneto, we are past the point of environmental compromise, and the next economy will be focused around the consumption and conservation of freshwater ecosystems. Through careful research and strategy, we have developed a tripartite proposal using the Sile Springs as a local catalyst for a larger paradigm shift around how we consume and conserve freshwater in the Veneto region. These radical interventions in agricultural processes and water distribution reflect the impending crisis and are grounded in a community organizing strategy that will integrate local knowledge with participatory research to slowly progress towards more self-sufficient, sustainable, and profitable communities. There is a context of two loosely organized town centers with a mix of industrial, commercial, and residential sites amongst agricultural lands. It is a very productive landscape, but current agricultural practices irrevocably drain soil and water. Our strategy seeks to make crops more generative and the economy more locally self-sufficient. Our site is divided by a dry region that begins at the base of the Grappa mountain range, the Sile Springs area, and wetland areas beyond the springs towards Lagoon. In the dry region, there are few natural sources of above-ground water due to high draining gravel and sandy land conditions. Additionally, reservoirs do not connect to these regions in favor of the underground water conditions. This leads to a lowering of the water table, depletion of water sources, and diminishing ecological biodiversity. Both the upper dry and lower wet regions use a combination of irrigation canals and pipe networks to distribute water to monoculture crops. Water is a precious resource that becomes more scarce in times of drought, and this is exacerbated mainly by mismanagement of water due to illegal wells and agricultural practices that create imbalances in water distribution for productive purposes as well as in natural ecosystems. Another significant stressor is the hydroelectric practices that block water flows, causing a depletion of the aquifer that feeds the Sile Springs. Then, the rapid discharge of this water for generating electricity does not allow for the excess flows to infiltrate into the aquifer. This water then aggregates flooding in the wetland farms due to impermeable clay soil. Sustainable energy is a necessity, but alternate energy solutions must be explored further in order to address the greater regional issues. There are patterns of industrial, residential, and commercial mixes everywhere. Large farms, abandoned fields, residential dwellings, urban concentrations, industry, and deteriorated structures make up the fabric of the diffuse landscape. The agriculture is largely characterized by government-subsidized monocultures of corn, grain, and trees for paper or furniture production. On the urban scale, there's a lack of services in the area that we observed firsthand and that was articulated by our interviewees.
Come vegetazione, perché sono tutti rovi sparsi in giro per le zone e se volessero fare ancora più turismo e ancora più soldi dovrebbero restaurare tutta la zona del Sile, non solo il parchetto che chiamano così.
Sì, perché vedi solo latte. Ma se vuoi, cioè dopo più avanti, dopo il Milano, cioè dopo Cosa Corva, Cosa Sagra, se te stai attento, c'è tipo un'altra stradina e prosegui vai fino poi a Santa Lucia tramite il Sile, stando lì dietro.
E quello non lo mantengo.
No, cioè proprio niente, è solo che loro pensano che si faccia turismo semplicemente con le sorgenti, con le risorgive, però c'è tanto per posti solo che nessuno conosce i posti.
The park that surrounds the spring is also suffering from a lack of funding. It was part of a 7-year European Union program, and now that the program has ended, the park as a public space faces an uncertain future. These issues can be harnessed in an organizing and spatial strategy that will push a paradigm shift in how we address these problems as a society and as a culture. The first of 3 proposals in addressing these issues is a system to connect the gravel pits to the agricultural land for the benefit of the spring through existing irrigation canals in order to create a linear biodiversity corridor and supplement the system through rainwater harvesting. This will diminish the effect of high water flows as well as maximize water use in times of scarcity that the area is currently prone to. Through collecting water from the roofs, homes will store water in personal containers, or on the neighborhood scale that will create a communal space out of the shared water container. This will establish a resilient ecological foundation by creating a more productive agricultural corridor as the community begins to transition towards more complex and permanent systems of sustainable agriculture, such as perennial polyculture farming. Also, this strategy allows for the spread of wild vegetation, creating natural water management systems instead of separated pockets confined by proximity to irrigation pipes. Through perennial or long-term plant life, polyculture farming can address and remedy issues of flooding, drought, and soil depletion, while simultaneously creating a system where production and economic flows circulate primarily within the community, thus reinforcing a local economy that will be less susceptible to international economic flows. Perennial polyculture farming uses a diverse range of native and adaptive productive plants, coupled with mimic natural processes to dramatically increase agricultural yield, while inherently creating a system of soil and water use that is generative instead of depletive of the ecosystem. This method of farming already exists in some farms in our site and function as largely self-sustaining mini ecosystems that produce food for a local market primarily, with regional potentials. It is not only more productive, but creates soil that is highly absorbent in times of flooding and retains maximum moisture in times of drought, requiring little to no additional irrigation and inherently mitigating the ecological effects of hydroelectric energy practices. Instead of using monocultures destined for an international market, where both product and income must be sent away from the local circulation flows, farmers can slowly transition to perennial polyculture farming through long-term strategies and grow a large variety of high-quality food that fortifies local economy while increasing economic flows and profit. We will integrate our proposals for ecological reservoirs, the corridor, and polyculture farming with the people's wants and needs by expanding upon their local knowledge to create embedded experts on these alternative ecological systems. We want to change the current paradigm of how people in this area interact with vegetation, water systems, and politics. Through using an existing abandoned building near the spring, we will open the first Cicloficina Popolare in Veneto. This will serve as a destination and a vital resource for visitors from near and far. It will also be the node to unite the existing fragmented network of dirt roads. Our local engagement strategy will pair local high school students with university students researching water and agricultural issues in the area to collaborate on community organizing around these ideas and beginning to explore long-term implementation of community-owned energy trust and community land trusts that can critically address local ecological, economic, and social issues. The Energy Trust would utilize the potential of the region to make energy from biomass and micro-hydroelectric turbines along the water corridors, thus reducing the amount of water that needs to be held from the Piave River and creating a decentralized energy network that diffuses dependence on unsustainable models. The Land Trust is a very long-term goal for community ownership of the land that will facilitate collective decision-making as such processes become more and more vital for a future where people and their urban ecologies can thrive. Our multi-pronged approach as a long-term strategy could potentially lead to more localized communities that are less vulnerable to global economic flows, less dependent on subsidies, more resilient to extremes in water flows, and less dependent on external food, energy, and funding. This creates human and natural ecologies that are more able to adapt to changing environmental conditions through time and creates new possibilities for versatile and intelligently designed local strategies.